Okay, so
I'm going to find an equivalent now.
okay. So I'm. Oh, here we go. Here he is.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Making eye contact this way. Hey, how are you?
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Shepherd.
Matt, that must be Shepherd.
Matt Shepherd.
Understood. Let me get my screens ready here to start sharing.
How are you?
I'm okay. I've managed to stay awake. I'm feeling relatively focused and frosty. I've got Blender loaded up in front of me.
We've just been going through your tutorial, well, your wiki.
Oh, yeah.
We got ourselves synchronized. I plugged in a proper Mac, so I got my num pads, and we've got the tab working, and we've gotten up to a point where we're copying things, duplicating things, and we've got, because I think it was good for us just to get a general idea of the physics of it, so that when you start, moving around fast, we have an understanding.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, welcome to ASAP webinar 2025. We are joined by Shepherd, co-host of the webinar series. Been working alongside Loretta for many years. He is a musician, a rapper, a digital artist, and many other things. I don't know if Shepherd, you want to introduce yourself a little bit as well?
Right, thank you very much. Just a little bit, I'm somebody who's dreamed of learning Blender for such a long time. And I didn't know that I'll be so lucky to be learning from the best in the industries, both of you. And for me, this is a very great defining moment for me and my animation career. I'm learning this for me and for my 3 daughters who will be learning animation from me as I learn from you. And so I have my background in the media for more than 17 years, professional newscaster, broadcaster, producer, and all of that. So that's me. I'm here as a rookie. Thank you.
We're going to be delving into Blender. We're going to be doing like a first look at it. We're joined by the legend Matt Estela, who's worked for some small companies but used to work for my company with me, the House of Curves. We met at Framestore, kind of, both working in the company, both heard about each other but never actually really met, a bit like Superman and Clark Kent type thing. And then met, got on, built a company, House of Curves, which went on to dizzying heights. That was when we were younger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Taken by Simon Bronson, was that?
It was by Simon, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You don't look much different. I've lost a lot of hair. That was the first department we had, which was in Holborn in a small little apartment.
Wow.
Shepherd, put your microphone on mute for a second. Shepherd's having some work done. That was us at the House of Curves. And we did various visual effects projects. I'm just going to show one of them, which is for F5 Festival, which was in New York. I think it's the coolest one that we did.
I love this.
cool and weird.
Pretty cool.
Directed by Benjamin Ducros, and basically gave us sort of a kit of parts, really, wasn't it? He kind of gave us still frames and a little bit of 2D. A bit of that was real pieces of wood that he'd animated stock frame, which was nice because it gave us a benchmark for what we had to match. And it was really when it was hard in 3D to make stuff look real, and I think we did a decent job. Especially the string. The string looked quite good.
It looks great. And I remember that basically it was pretty much the first shots and the last shot were real, and everything in the middle was all CG, was all us.
That is correct. Yeah, and since then, I mean, you can talk a bit about yourself if you want, but I can talk for you, what you want.
I like hearing you talk about me.
So did you go to Animal Logic after, and you went back to Australia to have a family?
That's right. Yeah, so went back to Australia, why don't I talk about it? Went back to Australia and joined Animal Logic, where they were busy on their second big animated CG feature film. And from that went to Dr. D.
What was that? Can we ask what that feature film was?
The first film, it's a film that no one's heard of, but it's worth finding. It's called The Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole.
Oh, really? I mean, it's an incredible film.
It looks incredible, but it's absolutely gorgeous.
It was flawed because it was called that, because you can never, even you struggled to figure out the order of the words.
Inside,
if it was called Owls,
we just called it Owls in Helmets. That was our name. But it looked absolutely amazing, and that was my first taste of really big sort of CG production filmmaking. Then from that went to Happy Feet 2 at Dr. D.
And I came out and worked on that with you.
That's right, you did. Yes. Yeah, sorry about that. Then went to, and there was a little period in the middle there of where I worked on Mad Max Fury Road for about 6 weeks. And then after that, went back to Animal Logic to work on GODSBABY, where you joined me again, which is cool. And then from there onto all the Lego movies. So went into Lego Movie 1 as a lighting lead, then jumped to doing effects. So there was a little break there where I did, what did I do? Marvel. So it was on a Avengers Age of Ultron, where we had a few nice sequences on that, and that was where I first picked up Houdini. Then went to Lego Batman, running an effects team, then Ninjago, then a little bit of Lego 2, then then went to teaching. So I was running a master's degree at a local university for a while, and then from there got into big tech, which is kind of strange, and that's where I am now. So I'm working for Google at the moment.
Let me just Google who Google. See.
Yeah.
Amazing. And here we are. And you also concurrently have been running a website called tokaru.com. Is that how am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
Tokaru.
Doesn't really matter. Yeah. So the story there is way back when I first started learning Maya, this is back in like 2000 or so, I needed to keep sort of like track of notes. So as I was learning the software, I thought, well, this is a tip that I'm going to forget unless I write it down. So I thought, well, I can write it down on paper, or I can write it down on one of these kind of newfangled, easily edited websites called a wiki. And I was running that internally at the studio I was in Sydney. And then when I moved to London, I took it out of the studio, put it on my own website, and I've just kept it running. So it's now, nearly 25 years old, which is crazy to say out loud.
Wow.
And, but over time, it was mainly my tips. And then when I learnt Houdini, and I had to learn like a lot of stuff really quickly. So I threw a ton more Houdini tips into it. And the people who make Houdini noticed, and they were really nice to me. So they started to ask me to go and do talks at SIGGRAPH and things. That got more people looking at the site. And so it's now become this weird obsession where whenever I learn anything about CG, so not just Houdini, not just Maya, but there's tips there about Nuke, about like website development, about game engines at some point, and now Blender's my most recent thing. And I think what I've kind of learned is people appreciate the way that I can take concepts, distill them into very short, easily read paragraphs with often I'll have just little kind of animated GIFs or a little example file that you can download, just because I'm an impatient guy and I want sort of like quick tips for myself, but they seem to help others as well. So that's the kind of background thinking behind the whole site.
And full circle, you know, we're getting into Blender, and I'm lost because if you look at how to learn Blender, there's 100 million ways to do it on YouTube. There used to be one way of learning. In Softimage, we had a manual and no internet. Right. There was no internet. And you would, you know, have to just look through the manual, and now it's changed. Now, you know, everyone is putting their tuppence worth in. But the problem with that is that you don't know which bits you're supposed to be learning, and you don't know whether you're doing healthy learning. So, you know, because I trust that you are, you know, you really weed out the stuff that you don't really need to, the weed, what is it, from the chaff? Something from the chaff?
The wheat from the chaff.
The wheat from the chaff. Are you the wheat or the chaff?
I think the wheat is the good thing.
I'm the chaff.
Chaff is a bad thing. Yeah.
So we've just been running through it, Shepard and I. We haven't got all the way through, but even just things like things to do on your keypad to get yourself synced so that you're going to places quickly. So we've just gotten through that stage. So if you're going to watch this world, I would recommend there'll be a link up in the description. Go through the tutorial up to around copying objects and stuff, because we felt like we knew a little bit about Blender enough to probably listen to what you're going to talk about without us going, hang on, where are you going and what are you doing? So with that, I'm going to leave it to you to show us some things.
Okay, so Blender. So I'll also give the caveat that I've been using Blender now for about 6 or 7 months, but I was kind of thrown into it because of my work. So I had to be productive in it within about the first couple of weeks. So I kind of learned the most aggressive, kind of scary way you can, but it's actually been really good because I had to learn the important things quickly. So Blender by default launches you into this view, and straight away they give you some nice ways to jump into pre-made layouts so that you can focus on the thing you want to focus. So by default up here, you see these various options. So there's layout, modeling, sculpting, and so on. And you can see that if I tap on these, if I go to modeling, I get this dedicated sort of modeling mode that looks very similar to the standard layout mode. I can go back to the default mode by just tapping back on layout, and I can go into a sculpting mode. And you can see that when I tap that, Blender will think for a bit, but then I get this sort of sculpting interface with all my tools down here for sculpting. It's quite handy. If I want to do UV editing, I can press this one. So it's quite nice. Sort of immediately, it gives you a very easy way to get into the particular thing you want to get into. If I jump back to the layout menu, the big thing about Blender is it's really optimized for a few keyboard shortcuts, so just to keep you sort of moving quickly. The first thing that you need to know is how you move the camera. So it's all driven by the middle mouse button. So if you hold the middle mouse button and you drag, you rotate the camera. If you hold down the middle mouse button and shift, it'll pan. And if you hold down the middle mouse button and you hold down control, you'll zoom in and out. So that's the basics of moving the camera. In terms of the basics of the keyboard shortcuts, you can choose objects by just clicking with your left mouse button. So you can see, so this icon here is the camera. You can also tell that because over here in the outliner, it shows you what the name of these objects are. So I'm going to choose the cube. And if I want to modify the cube, it's basically G, R, and S. So G is for grab. So if I tap G on my keyboard and start moving my mouse, I'm moving the cube. When I have it where I want it to be, I can left click and that'll complete the move. If I hit G again, and in the middle of this move, I decide actually I don't want to move it, you can right click and that'll cancel, which is quite handy. And the other thing you can do is when I hit G again and I'm moving, I can also tap X, which will then lock it to move only on the X axis, or Y for the Y axis, and Z for the Z axis. Something that is important to people coming from other 3D packages is you'll notice that Y moves left and right, and Z moves up and down. So 3D packages will call themselves either Z up or Y up. Most other 3D packages will be Y up. Blender is Z up. You just got to accept it.
Yeah, we went through this and I googled whether I could change it, and it said Houdini Y up as well?
Yes, Houdini's Y up. It is interesting though that even though you think, but how is this going to play if I have to move things in and out of other apps? When you save OBJs, USD, most other 3D file formats, Blender will just silently convert it for you properly, so that generally speaking, if you were to bring models out of something else and into here, it all looks correct. So you don't have to do sort of like mind-bendy flips to fix things.
Fair.
So that's G for grab. R is for rotate, and it's a similar thing. So R, and then I start moving, it just rotates relative to the screen. And again, if I wanted to rotate purely around the X, Y, and Z, I can now tap X or Y or Z. And if I want to cancel the move, I can right-click and cancel. And S is for scale. So again, I can tap S and I can start to scale. And if I just want to scale on X, same deal. So that's all pretty handy. Until you get used to that, and if you just want sort of standard like kind of handles on screen, you can use the toolbar down here. So this is translate, so I can grab that and I can move it like I would in Maya.
Do you find yourself ever doing that? Or do you find yourself using the keypad all the time?
When I first started using Blender, I use these, and nowadays I don't. I mainly use the keyboard shortcuts.
So it's best to learn the shortcuts as soon as possible, I guess, even if it's hard work.
It's kind of hard work, but then when you get used to it, it's fast.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. Sometimes it's just good to just get into the hard stuff now.
Yeah,
so
and
that it's easy.
What I notice is comparing Blender to other 3D apps I've used is Maya. It's almost like sort of 3 clicks for every operation, where you click to choose a thing, you click to move it, you click to let it go, you click to change your tool context. Whereas in Blender, it's all just kind of like click and G, click and R, click and S, and it's very, very fast and very interactive. If you've seen like really good Blender users, they move almost at the speed of thought, because it's so kind of like under their fingertips, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of move, rotate, scale, and camera. Next is if you want to duplicate stuff. So Daffy, I've watched Daffy do kind of like really fast initial layout of things, where you start with a cube and you then duplicate the cube a few times and moves at blazing speed. I reckon when you get used to Blender, you'll move it even faster. So if I want to duplicate this cube, it's Shift D, and straight away this puts me into the same kind of G grab mode. So I can just go and put that there. I can now choose both these guys, Shift D, grab all these guys, Shift D, and I can just keep doing that. And you can sort of replicate stuff out very, very quickly. I'm going to undo back to there. What else is useful in the basics? Other basics would be the various view modes.
The other thing that you told me on the tutorial was the Shift D and right click if you don't want it to move it.
Yes, exactly. So quite often you'll have a shape like this cube, and you just want to copy it in place. So if you do Shift D and you start to move it, I can right click, and it looks like it's undone the move, but it hasn't. It's kept the copy, but it's just put it exactly where the first one is. So that's handy for various reasons. Next is the various view. What next? Let's go for making other things. So in the viewport here, if I hit Shift A for add, then you get this menu of various things you can make. So you've got mesh objects and curves and surfaces. Most of the time you'll be using meshes. These are kind of like the standard objects which you're used to, so polygon shapes. So if I want to make a plane, I'm just going to go and tap on plane with my left mouse button, and a plane is made. So now I'm going to scale that up. So hit S and just drag away, maybe drag it again. So now I've got a basic ground plane. I'm going to choose my cube and just plonk it on top like that. So now we've got a little set. The reason I did that is this will be useful for seeing the various render modes. So up here in the top right left corner, you've got these 4 different modes here. So at the moment we're in standard shaded mode, which is just this kind of gray solid mode. The one before it is wireframe. The one after it is kind of like a real-time shading that does a very simple shading like this. So it's like sort of, so it does basic shadows, you can see there, and basic surface properties, which we'll explain in a bit. And the last one is full ray trace shading. So we get all this sort of like, lovely soft shadow fall off.
So now when I click on my Blender, the 4 bits on the top right corner, the first one, the mesh, the second one that shows the solid shape. When I click the third one, my Blender closes, the software closes.
Okay, so this third one, this is using your video card to do the shading. So so that's which then relies a lot on your graphics drivers and whether you can run kind of like real-time games well. If your particular computer doesn't have a powerful video graphics card, it may well crash. So in that case, maybe just skip that one and just go for the first, the second, and the fourth one.
Okay, so the fourth one is fine regardless of the third one.
To a point, which I'll explain in a bit. This panel here is all your options and properties for your object, for the scene, for lights, for cameras, for everything. They're all kind of like bundled here together. If we go to this option here, this render options, so it's meant to look like the back of a fancy camera where you'd be setting options for the photo which you're about to take. If I click there, you can see the very first option here is the render engine that you're using. So Eevee is the default. And so Eevee is also using your graphics card to do all the heavy lifting. It's fine for some cases, but generally speaking, you want the full fancy rendering, in which case I'm going to change this render engine from Eevee to Cycles. And now you can see that if you've used other 3D renderers, you'll recognize kind of a similar sense of, you're seeing kind of like rays of light being bounced through the scene. This is doing much more accurate rendering of these objects. But because I've gone to Cycles and the device's CPU, it's using the main chip on my computer rather than the video graphics card. So say that if you are having problems with Blender sort of freezing, crashing using Eevee and this third mode, try switching the engine to Cycles and go to the fourth mode, and it should be okay.
And then just a quick question as we go. These two, so basically I use Arnold within Maya, and the Maya renderer is obviously like old and they're not supporting it so much. Would that be Eevee, and Cycles would be a blend, would be a kind of an Arnold type?
Arnold and Cycles, yes, that's the
comparison.
Analogy. So you'd call Arnold is a path tracer. So it tries to calculate all the ways light bounces around a scene. So you get all that sort of lovely photorealistic detail. Cycles is the same. Eevee is the opposite, really, where Eevee is kind of looking forward, whereas like the Maya software renderer is very old and antiquated, Eevee is trying to use the latest in terms of real-time graphics, stealing techniques and tricks from games.
So it's like an Unreal Engine type renderer type.
Yeah.
As an equivalent.
Yes, which is why if your computer isn't designed for handling kind of the latest sort of cutting-edge real-time gaming stuff, it can cause issues and cause crashes and things.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
So while we're here, it's worth also just pointing out that even though this is a full path trace environment, this is pretty fast. I can be sort of moving things around still. I can treat this as if it's my regular viewport. So I can still move the cube. I can grab this light up here, and I can move this closer, and you get it all updating in real time.
It's crazy.
Which is pretty cool.
It's quite nice that it feels like because it's like the renderer is in 3D, whereas Maya there's a window down here where you see what it's going to look like, and you're doing stuff in there, and they've kind of brought Arnold into the viewport, but whoever uses it, this kind of looks like they've bonded it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I've noticed is interesting about Blender is that because they try really hard to have no external dependencies. So they don't, while you can get Arnold for Blender, I think, and you can get other renderers and stuff, they really want to make a point of saying, no, anyone who wants to make their own feature film and they want all the things that you need for that, it should all be in the box. So they work really hard on making their own quite powerful renderer. They work really hard on quite powerful animation tools and texturing tools and lighting tools and sculpting tools. It's all in the box.
So you're saying stick with cycles, even if I know
if you're doing
Arnold?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say play with cycles for a bit, and you'd be surprised at how good results you can get. And you don't. I quite often don't miss other kind of commercial renderers.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's sort of the basics of cameras, the various view modes, choosing objects and things. Let's go a little bit deeper. So what we can do is we can go into how we do materials. So what I'm going to do is, and also how we manipulate the overall viewport. So I'm just going to drop back into the solid mode for a bit. When you want to make different layouts for the interface, you can use these presets up here. That's fine. The other way is that if you hover your cursor in the corner, you'll see it change to a little crosshair. And when that happens, you can click and drag, and you can make windows that way. If you want to collapse it, you can click on the border here, and you can drag it back in, and it'll say join areas, and you get back to a single view. So this is quite handy because you can drag from pretty much any corner, and you can sort of divide your window up. It's very fast and intuitive way to work. So I'm going to drag from this corner here and drag up to make a panel like that. And then if you want to change what these views actually are, it's this icon in the corner here. So this is the editor type. So if I tap there, you see we've got all these different window types. So at the moment, this is a 3D viewport, but I'm going to change it to be a shader editor, like that. So that's how you make different views. So now that I've done that, I'm going to jump back into the cycles mode up here, and I'm going to choose this box, and we're going to play with this box and do some changes to its material. So you can see that when I chose it, it brought up this node view down here. So if I zoom in using my scroll wheel, you can see that this has two nodes. So this is a material. So if you've used other renderers, you'd recognize that straight away as being where you define your color, your textures, how shiny it is, all that stuff, and a final output node, which it links to. So from here, you can kind of guess straight away saying, well, if I want to make this box be, say, red, if this is the base color, I'm just going to try tapping on this color swatch, and you get a color picker, and I'm going to choose a red, and you can see it updates. So it's kind of funny that this is very similar to what you do in Maya or in Houdini or in Softimage, but there's something about this being so immediate and linked directly to the renderer, and it's also real time, that I've tried going back into other packages to do look dev and lighting, and I find it really slow. I find this really fast, surprisingly fast. If you wanted to add, say, a texture rather than use a color, in here, it's the same as in the 3D view. So while my cursor's down here, I'm going to hit Shift A, and I've got this another add menu, but now I'm adding things for materials. So what I'm going to find, I'm going to look for something for, say, texture, and you have all these built-in simple texture types, so procedural textures. So let's say we go like a brick texture, and I pop that down, and then I can connect those two things together. So now I've got bricks. If I rotate this around, rotate on X, and then rotate on Y, there it is. So you can see I've got bricks there. And you can see that now I've got all these different sort of sliders to play with here. So I can move the offset of the bricks. I can change the frequency of the bricks. I can change the scale. And again, it's all quite real time. It's quite fast, which is cool. If I wanted to use an image on my computer, I'm going to hit Shift A again, look for texture, and go down to image texture. And so the way this works is similar to hitting Shift D in the 3D view. So when I left click on image texture, it makes a node and it gets stuck onto my cursor. And then if I want to put it down, I just left click. So now that's been placed down. So now I'm going to go find an image. So I'm going to go open, and I get this file browser. And let's see, I'm going to go to my pictures, and let's see if we can find something that is not too revealing. Let's go this one. So if you hover, you get a little preview thumbnail, which is quite handy. So I'm going to go open image, and then I'm going to connect this one to my base color instead, like that. And I can see I've got an image in my objects. So again, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, very similar to the shading environment inside Maya. If you want to change other properties, so say I want to change the light color, if I choose the light, lights don't use nodes, they just use properties over here. So this property panel shows you kind of everything at once, and it's all sort of bundled together. And so you've just got to know that if I want to change, say, light properties, you go through this list until you find lights down here. So see how this has this little light icon? So I can tap on there, and these are now properties for this light. And it's the similar vibe, so I can click on the color and I can change it to be maybe yellow or green. That's fine. I could maybe duplicate this light, so I'm going to hit Shift D, move this light over here, make that one be maybe more of a purple. And again, you can see you get very interactive lighting feedback from this package, which is pretty cool. You have different light types. So at the moment, these are both point lights. We know that point lights look very digital. If you want this to be more realistic, we can change it to be, say, an area light. So I'm going to change the mode up here from point to area. Now you can see I've got a bit of a direction and a wider fall off. So I'm going to move this light by looking from, say, up here, and I'll move it to here. And then an area light is based on its size. So I'm just going to try scaling it. So hit tap S, and I'm going to scale it up.
Oh, okay.
And now we get a much sort of softer shadow fall off here. I might even grab this other light, and I'm going to grab it, move it over there. I'll make that an area light, hit tap S, scale it up again, and I'll rotate it to sit more towards the thing. And I'll use the rotate gizmo for this one. I'll spin it so it faces towards that way. So now we have this very kind of lurid render. And you can see that when I stop moving, cycles will start very, very coarse, but then if you just let it calculate, it'll sort of throw more and more samples, and all that noise goes away over time. And you can see that as I move it again, this thing in the corner tells you the progress of the renderer. So it's aiming to do 1,000 samples per pixel. So you kind of get to saying, oh, it's nearly done. Oh, it's done.
And then let's say you're already happy with an image and you're like, actually, I really want that. Can you save that image and then it'll just give you it with the map of the the area?
Yep. So if you go to the render menu up here, you go render and you go render image.
Right.
And that will render from the camera.
But I mean,
so
like if it's already done the render, can you take what it's already been processed?
No, so that is an interactive thing. Okay. So you have to explicitly say, no, do a separate render.
Okay, cool.
So this is a good chance to talk about cameras. So if I close that render view for a sec, so if I spin around this view, you can see again this icon that I mentioned before. So this is the camera. So if I select it, you can see that it gives you an indication of how sort of wide the camera is framing and which way it thinks is up. So the triangle just tells you this is facing up. If you want to see what the camera sees, there's a few different ways. I found the best way is hit the backtick key, which on my keyboard is the key. Normally it's the key next to the one key. So it's generally this key right in the corner here.
It's the same on my Mac.
Right. Yep, there you are. So if you tap that key, you get this menu here. So this just gives you shortcuts to look from different views. So if I wanted to view this from the top, I can go to the top and click, looking at it from the top, or from the right, or from the front. And the other one it has is down here, you can see from the view camera. So if I choose that one, I'm now seeing what the camera sees.
And what were you looking at? What were you looking at it through before? Was that kind of just like
just a roaming free camera
thing? But you wouldn't be able to see that in 3D then.
No, so Blender doesn't have a sense of that being an actual dedicated camera.
Okay, fine.
You can make a camera from the current view, but that's right. Again, it doesn't exist like in Maya.
Okay.
So this is what the camera sees. If I move my view, I'm going to jump out of the camera. So I can do that now. So you can see that I've now jumped out and the camera is still there.
Okay.
But I can jump back to the camera. But sometimes you think, well, but if I'm looking through the camera, I want to actually adjust what the camera sees while I'm doing it. The trick there is while my cursor is in the 3D viewport, you tap N, which brings up options. I don't know why, maybe numeric input, I'm not sure, but N brings up options on the side over here. So N makes it go away again, N brings it back. So here you've got different sort of tabs. So there's item, tool, viewer, and this other shortcut, which I think I've turned on. If you go to view, and then down to lock camera to view. So if I turn that on, now when I move my view with the middle mouse button, I'm actually updating the camera. So this is a really nice way that I can, kind of update the view directly, and I can see how I'm updating the camera. So I'm going to get a nice framing, like saying like that. And then when I'm done, I turn off this lock again, and then I can jump out. And now my camera is fixed in space.
Yeah, cool.
That all make sense so far?
Perfect. Shepherd?
Cool.
Yes, it does. Yes, it makes sense. Pretty clear. Cool. Yes, thank you.
All right. Other little things that are useful. The other thing which is handy to know is you can see how, while we're looking at this nice high quality render, we've got all these sort of icons cluttering the view. If you want to temporarily hide them, you can press this button here, which is show overlays. So if I tap that, you can see that it hides all the extra stuff. If I tap it again, they will come back.
Nice.
So it's useful when you're doing interactive look dev. Let's jump back into, so if I jump back into this mode for a sec, the other handy option to note is the X-ray mode, which is this button here. So that makes everything be semi-transparent.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason this is useful to know is when we get into object editing. So if I choose this box, and the thing that Daffy mentioned before, where if I hit tab, I get another menu that lets me flip into different modes. So you've got the options up here for getting into different sort of almost like preset modes for changing what you're doing. You can also get to it from this tab menu here. So there's object mode, which is what we're in now, or I could get into edit mode. So I can actually start to modify this shape. So while I'm in here,
so are they different modes to the ones at the top?
No, they're the same, but
just a different way to get to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So when I'm in edit mode, I can choose vertices by clicking, and it's the same as in object mode. I can hit G and I can move vertices. I can right click. I can marquee selects, and I can move them as well. I can hit scale to scale up and down. What is useful to know here, though, is that you might think that if I were to marquee select everything, I would choose everything. But if I look from the back, you can see that it doesn't. It only chooses what you can see. If you want it to choose everything, turn on the X-ray mode. So now if I choose it, I get all the points. So it's very internally consistent that way, whereas like Maya makes you jump through different menus to do all that sort of stuff. I've not done a lot of modeling inside Blender, but I know there's a ton of hotkeys for doing stuff. You can also flip between different modes here. So up here, you've got these tiny icons for vertex, edges, or faces. So if I jump to say faces, I can grab that face, and I think it's E to extrude. So you can just like very quickly sort of box model things out, which is quite handy. If I get into the edge mode and I choose an edge, I can think B to bevel. No, was it E to extrude? No, there's a shift B. No, there's a shortcut to bevel. The other way to do it is you've got a bunch of shortcuts down here. These all have nice tooltips. I think you can right click. Yeah, it's Command B. There it was.
Command B. Okay.
Command B. Yeah, there it is. That should be doing it.
It's got really nice beveling system, hasn't it? I've been looking at a lot of online tutorials, and it just looks so much nicer than the way Maya does it.
Yeah, like all of its sort of box modeling features are really nice. So if you like that sort of box modeling way of working, this is really cool. I haven't box modeled in ages. I will admit, what I do is sculpting, and I was surprised that the sculpting tools in Blender are actually really, really good. So I'll show you that. So the way that works is if I jump back into object mode, and let's say I want to sculpt on this shape, first thing you need is lots and lots of polygons. So I'm going to go to another section of this that I didn't cover, which was modifiers. So this is like the modify stack in Maya. You know, we have the sort of construction history. So if I go to add modifier, I have a bunch of different options. And what I'm going to create here is generate and multi-resolution. So I choose this one. Now we're in this almost like kind of ZBrush mode, where I can subdivide this mesh a few times, like that. So I've gone up to 4 levels of subdiv. 5, why not? So we've got loads of polygons here. And now I can go into, so I've hit tab, I can go into sculpt mode. And now I can just sculpt. So I can just like move around and sculpt on the shape. And it feels like you're using ZBrush. I mean, like remarkably close to using ZBrush. So you've got all these great brushes down here. What you can do, because you just get these icons, but it doesn't tell you what they are until you hover over them. If you get to this little divider just above, you can pull that up, and you get more space. And I think there's another way over here, this button here, and you can turn on names. So you can actually see what the names are. And all the sort of like, most of the tools that you used to in ZBrush are all here. So you can crease and you can inflate and do all the stuff. People make complete characters using this sculpting interface. It's pretty good. And then I can get back into object mode, and I can go back into rendering. And you can see that it all just works, and it's kept all of my texturing, all the materials that are here. It's pretty good. The other thing that you can do is, coming from Houdini, I like all my sort of like Houdini style tricks. You can do that inside Blender, and they call it geometry nodes. So if I go, I'll make a new shape. So I'm going to hit over here, Shift A, and I'm going to make a mesh cube. And let's work with this guy. I'm just going to hide these others for the moment. So I'm going to hide from over here in the outliner. So you can see you've got this eye icon. So I'm just going to hide everything that I don't want to see right now. So I'm going to hide that to that, and just keep this cube. So I'm going to choose a cube, and this time I'm going to add a modifier. But this time I'm going to add a modifier, which is a geometry nodes modifier. So I'm going to click that, and I'm in this mode. And then I'm even going to get into the geometry nodes mode up here. So see, it says geometry nodes up here. I'm going to tap that, and I get this slightly different layout, which is useful for doing a geometry node setup. And then I'm going to make a new geometry nodes network by pressing new here. So now I get this view. What this is kind of like sort of visual programming, where it says, this is the shape coming in, this is the shape going out. And what happens in the middle, you can do whatever you want. So I might say, for example, I'm going to hit, say, Shift A to add more nodes in here. And the first thing I might do is I might go, let's see, what's a good one? You can browse through these menus, or if you know what you're looking for, you can just start typing, and it will try and find those nodes for you. So I might try, I think it's distribute. Yep, so distribute something on something. So I'm going to say distribute points on faces. So again, I get this node, and I'm going to put it down here, and it will auto orient for you. And now I've made a bunch of points that live on the surface of that cube. And I can control how many, I can change the random seed. But then I might want to do something else, because these are just kind of like almost like sort of like nulls, like just locators in space. So if we jump back to this guy, and it is geometry, instances, and instance on points. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to put this as the instance. And now I've got all these cubes put onto all those points. But because the box is really big, you get this kind of mess of it. So I'm going to make this box smaller by making it, say, like 10 centimeters on each side. Now I've got all these boxes. And if I wanted to rotate all these boxes, I can grab this number and I can rotate these numbers here. Or I can control that from a random value. So I'm going to say, make it a completely random value and pop that in. And now they're all randomly rotated. So
nice. I can see, yeah, this is fun, isn't it?
You can see how this is powerful, right?
Yeah.
So this is where I'm spending a lot of my time at the moment, because the work I'm doing kind of favors this work.
Yeah.
Super powerful. What else is worth knowing? I did try to sort of like summarize all these points over here, as you sort of pointed out at the start of it. So this, so it's the very sort of basic setups of moving and duplicating and the basics of the various modes. When you want to get into sort of geometry nodes, I found these guides are really good, these two links here. If you want to get into rigging, Blender kind of has its own way of doing stuff. It's not that complicated. If you're coming from Maya, you'll sort of fight against it a bit, but it's pretty straightforward. And there are certain processes in Blender that they do try and keep very consistent. So it's once you sort of get a sense of this, like Shift D to duplicate, GRS to grab, rotate scale, you'll find the same things work everywhere. So even in terms of like with the nodes here, I can choose things and I can hit G to grab. I can hit S to scale them, to move them closer or further apart.
Oh my goodness.
Or I can hit R to rotate them. So
it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, they've really thought about it in a creative way.
Exactly. Like what I've noticed is they do really seem to favor or think about the workflow for the artist who's like moving quickly. They don't want to waste time. You've learned one thing here, it should work the same way over there. Blender's really good like that.
Wow. Shepard, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is completely mind-blowing for me, because I'm going to have to, sit back and watch the video and test and try everything again. And the colors, the lighting, the shading, and what it's doing right now is totally mind-blowing. Like, this is just 1 hour. I imagine what Matt can do in 5 minutes. It's totally crazy. Yeah. Like, if I could just do this, and put Shepard or S on it, I'm Superman already.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be your next exercise, is to turn all those little nodes into S's.
Exactly. It's a good point. Let's see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. This is the final thing, and then we're going to cut it. So we're going to get text. Shift A,
so I
TEX.
can't do it from in here. What I can do is I can make an object out here.
Yeah.
I think.
So Shift
text
A,
like that.
TEX, S.
But where do I actually set the text?
Oh, now we're testing you.
Yeah, you are. So there I've made my text. It says text. But where do I set the text?
You never do logos.
Not anymore. I haven't done logos in a while. But there's bound to be something in here where I actually say what are the properties of this object.
Shepard, we stumped him.
You have stumped me. How dare you? I'm outraged. Shape, fast editing. Oh, is it go into edit mode here? There it is. Yeah. So you go into edit mode, and then it gives you a live
an editor, text editor. Okay.
SHEPERD. Right. So that's my shape. Oh, I misspelled it.
Yes.
Got it. So what I should be able to do is jump back to this guy, and I should be able to drag that text directly into this editor, like this. There it is. And I can use this as my input instead.
Oh, look, it's too many Shepards.
It's barely enough.
Oh,
you only need one Shepherd.
This is crazy. Wow.
It's actually quite beautiful, isn't it? It's actually quite beautiful.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Wow.
And
Wow.
then we're going to
Incredible.
change the background colors. So go to scene, so world properties, and make the background color be black. There we are. There's your cool new logo.
Well, I want you to
Now
render that
it's Shepherd
image.
in the cos. in the
Call ends
cosmos.
in under 1 minute. So, final thoughts. Thank you, Matt, for this. Render that
all right.
image. Don't touch anything. Send it to us. And that's going to be your new showreel piece.
Awesome.
Screw Lego. Like, this is it. This is the future.
Lego is for squares, man. This is how we do it now. So view, camera view, so I can spin around like this. Like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
And then I'm going to render that.
We'll
So
take it.
going render image.
All right. If this cuts off, say your goodbyes now. Thank you, Matt, for everything. This has been an education for sure.
That is perfectly fine.
Thank you
Happy to
so
do it.
much.
Oh, good.
Thank
all
you
good.
so much, both of you, for the opportunity. Daffy, Matt, thank you so much. You're going to be proud of me very soon.